Today's show is sponsored by Datadog, a cloud-scale monitoring and analytics platform. Datadog was built to bring clarity to complex, dynamic applications, in the cloud, on-premises, in containers, or wherever they run. With powerful dashboards, seamless integrations into more than 250 technologies, Datadog provides deep end-to-end visibility into the health and performance of modern applications. And in July, Datadog is hosting Dash, a 2-day conference to learn about building and scaling the next generation of applications, infrastructure, and technical teams. So if you want to go to Dash, hang out with the folks from Datadog, and learn about all these cool new technologies, register today at dashcon.io/attend. That's dashcon.io/attend.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to the Cloudcast. We are coming to you live from the massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Another busy week here in the technology industry as we talk about Cloud News of the Week. And this is going to be the second of our shows this week that are going to focus on a very interesting talk going on at the Velocity Conference. So the last one we did was around machine learning. This one's going to be about service mesh and the Envoy technology with some folks over at Lyft who are going to give us some really good firsthand experience of their experience having worked on not only creating the Envoy proxy, but working and living with it, both technology-wise and organizationally around service meshes. So I think you're going to really enjoy that. But I want to jump to the Cloud News of the Week. This was another very, very busy week. Last week we talked about the acquisitions going on in the security space. This week was all about acquisitions in the sort of BI or business intelligence space. So we saw two really big acquisitions happen. Google Cloud acquired Looker, a company who was sort of innovating around SaaS in the BI space, a $2.6 billion acquisition. Looker was a company that we were always sort of interested in at the Cloudcast. We had bumped into them at a lot of different events and had tried to get them on the show from time to time. Didn't ever make that work, unfortunately, but congratulations to the team at Looker. A very nice exit for them. And really looks like Google is definitely looking to make a big splash with the new CEO and kind of a new focus around enterprise. So $2.6 billion for Looker. And then not to be outdone, Salesforce decided to step up and acquire Tableau for $15.7 billion in an all-stock deal. So the market around BI definitely heated up here in the last week or so, almost $20 billion in acquisitions happening. So congratulations to the team at Tableau. They had been doing very, very well as an independent company, but get to be now part of the Salesforce ecosystem. So congratulations to them. Definitely showcasing that business intelligence is a hot market. It's something that technology is becoming part of every business decision. Businesses are part of every technology decision, and putting that information into more people's hands, making it transparent, obviously is something that the market is definitely demanding. So interesting to see those two acquisitions happen back to back here within a week. The last thing I want to talk about in Cloud News of the Week I thought was interesting, and again, I'm always looking for things that are kind of outside of the technology realm, but are influenced by the cloud providers or the cloud technologies. And so saw an interesting article today. FedEx actually decided to decline to renew one of their priority delivery contracts with Amazon Prime or with Amazon. It was about an $850 million contract that they walked away from. And they basically cited a couple of things. Number one, they cited that Amazon was getting into the rapid delivery business, and they were trying to kind of avoid, working with a competitor who had previously been a customer. They were citing that Amazon getting into that business was helping to decline the prices of that space about a third in terms of prices. So it was impacting their business. They also made a kind of a statement that they were making a bigger commitment to some of the other companies in retail that were trying to further compete with Amazon. So Walmart and others who are trying to deliver similar types of Prime services out there. So it's interesting to watch the impact that the business side of the cloud provider, so in this case, Amazon.com versus AWS, but how those things will impact things down the road. And, transportation, autonomous drivers, around those sort of things, they all kind of intertwine themselves. And as more and more of us are using services like Prime or other rapid delivery services for groceries or other things, I think we're going to see a pretty interesting ecosystem form around that. We will see interesting partnerships, interesting competitive models, interesting cooperative partnerships as well. So just kind of wanted to highlight that. Thought it was an interesting article that popped up in my timeline this week. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up for Cloud News of the Week. As we mentioned, this is our second of two shows around the Velocity conference. Hopefully some of you get a chance to attend it. If you do, there is a discount code in the show notes that you can take advantage of. But looking forward to our conversation with Lyft. Today's show is sponsored by DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean offers the simplest, most developer-friendly cloud platform. It's optimized to make managing and scaling apps easy with an intuitive API, multiple storage options, integrated firewalls and load balancers, a new managed Kubernetes service, and much more. From predictable pricing to flexible configurations to world-class customer support, you'll get access to all the infrastructure services you need to grow your business. Plus, DigitalOcean's community provides over 2,000 tutorials to help you stay up to date on the latest open source software, languages, and frameworks. So to get started on DigitalOcean for free, with a free $50 credit, go to do.co/cloudcast. That's do.co/cloudcast. And we're back. And folks, as you know, one of the topics that we've been covering a decent amount lately, and I know has grown a lot of interest from the audience as we see from people listening, new people coming on the show, and new topics is around the idea of service mesh. So as more and more companies get interested in microservices and distributed applications, and then how to secure them and build networks around them, service mesh is becoming more and more of a common topic. And so one of the things that we're seeing is there's a lot of different variations on service meshes that are out there, but one of the really common things that we hear in a lot of the service meshes is the use of the Envoy proxy. And so today we're very, very excited to have Jose Nino, who's one of the software engineers at Lyft, who is actively using the Envoy proxy. It's part of his day-to-day work, and he's going to be giving a talk here at the Velocity conference talking about how they've essentially built out their service mesh as they've done their microservices migration. So Jose, welcome to the show. Great to have you on.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for having me.
And as a loyal Lyft customer, thank you much for all the work that you guys do to make it easy for me to get rides here and there.
Thank you for keeping me employed.
So first off, give us a little bit of your background, maybe both before you joined Lyft and then the things that you do on a regular basis over at Lyft.
Yeah. So before I joined Lyft, I was finishing up a master's in distributed systems back at Johns Hopkins in Maryland. And I focused on highly scalable distributed systems for hospital use. And part of the lessons that we learned there informed my time in searching for a job and informed my time in searching for what I wanted to do next. And that's how I ended up in contact with Lyft and with Matt Klein, specifically because I heard that he was working on a network proxy that was going to help with some of the things that I had seen back in finishing my master's. So that's how I ended up here at Lyft. And since the beginning, I have worked at the networking team at Lyft, who is the team that or was really the creator of the network of the network proxy Envoy. So Matt Klein is the original architect, and he built a team of around 4 people, myself included. And the 4 of us basically built and open sourced the original iteration of Envoy about 3 years ago. And then since then, like you said, it really caught on like wildfire. And over the last 3 years, I've played a lot of different roles internally, but externally, I've continued to be a maintainer and a developer in the Envoy proxy project. Most recently, and I think we might have some room to talk about this later in the show, we have spun up a new team that's working on very exciting things with mobile applications and related to Envoy. So I'm currently working on that. I'm really excited.
Yeah, very, very cool. Yeah, I tell people all the time, especially since Envoy is not exclusively, but a lot of times, talked about in the context of things like Kubernetes and large scale systems. I always try to remind people that what's sort of different with this new generation of technologies that are being used, some of the projects that are coming out of that are governed by the CNCF is that, in the past, sometimes open source projects would just kind of emerge and some people would be experimenting with stuff. What's really, I think, valuable nowadays is that a lot of these projects, whether they're something like Envoy or Prometheus, which started out at SoundCloud, they come out of companies that essentially already have the DNA of having to solve large scale problems. And so the work that they're doing in contributing communities comes from real problems. They've sort of seen a lot of the things that happen when things get big and problematic. And so I'm excited to have a chance to talk to you about this, because obviously you're not just building this with your team, but you're living with, the challenges that come at these larger scales and more real-time applications.
Absolutely. I don't think you could have hit it on the nail better. Like the first version, the version of Envoy that we open sourced 3 years ago, had nothing that we did not use at Lyft, meaning everything that we built prior to open source, we built it because Lyft needed it. And there was actually a lull in Envoy development here at Lyft for a bit, because as far as Lyft was concerned, we were feature complete. So of course, Envoy as an open source project has had a lot of velocity in features, over the last 3 years. But it really, at Lyft, we have played it exactly like you said. If we see a problem that we have here at the company that can be solved by adding a feature or having a new option in Envoy, then we'll do it. But if not, then we're not going to just build features to build features.
Gotcha. So, one of the things that you're talking about at Velocity Conference is how Lyft went from a much more monolithic original application, which is pretty common for startups, to a more distributed microservices. Walk us through some of the steps, because like you mentioned, you've been around this now for 3 years. What were some of those things that, as you went into more microservices, so you're dealing with more intra-service communication, you had to secure that. What were some of those things, or what were some of the tipping points that led you to say, hey, we need more of a service mesh, we need this more advanced proxy, versus maybe what was just regularly available through other tools at the time?
Yeah, so I like this part of the talk, and we have at the beginning of the talk that kind of like to frame the whole story. We do have this timeline that says, what did Lyft look like in 2013? What about 2014? And how did that inform what we did? I think really what happened back in 2014, 2015 was that Lyft developers were kind of like in an abortive state with microservices. And what that means is that no one really trusted the network. People were trying to move out of this big monolith that was slowing down our development and our feature velocity. But as people started moving things out of the monolith and having to do network calls, they started seeing the failure scenarios that are classical and typical from distributed systems, right? But we didn't have the tools to kind of ameliorate the problems that those classical failure modes have, like, drop requests, retries. And so really what informed us at that point was that if we didn't do something to make the system trustworthy for our own engineers and the people that were going on call, then we were never going to move out of this monolith. So that kind of like social thought really led the technical thought of what is it that we want to build. So at that moment, Matt had come from Twitter, where they had built something similar for their edge. But again, with the lessons learned from that experiment in distributed systems, we really started seeing, okay, what are the tools out there? And at the time, really, HA proxy was the classical tool that was being used for inter-service communication. The problem there is that we had gone to a point where we had new standards for protocols, so HTTP2, and we also had new standards for what is it that we want to observe out of the systems. And HA proxy was not there yet, right? We didn't have an H2 native proxy. We didn't have a proxy that really gave a full set of observability to deal with the problems of inter-service communication that we were seeing here at Lyft. And that's where we went out and wrote our own thing.
Obviously, having been around the project for a while, I assume you've talked to other people in the community, and Lyft has to solve certain kinds of problems. I mean, there's an aspect of the user experience that's very real time. I'm sure there are a lot of things that you do on the back end that are machine learning. Have you found, some of the types of problems that you are solving are common with other people in the community, other companies in the community, or do they tend to be somewhat unique to Lyft, or are there some overlaps that you find between what you solved your specific things for Lyft and things that are common in the community.
Yeah, so I think one of the big reasons that Envoy really caught like wildfire is timing and is luck. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people at the same time were experiencing a lot of these problems. They were in this abortive states themselves, where they had growing teams of engineers and growing systems that needed to be broken up, but we didn't have the tools to actually do that safely. And while I agree with you that Lyft, has a pretty specific use case. So, for example, like you said, it's a highly real time system that any downtime is unacceptable, which is not the case with other companies of our size. So, you can think of Airbnb. If problems happen, people will most likely come back in an hour or two and try and book a hotel. But if someone's trying to get a car to get to the airport right now, well, if it doesn't work now, then they're going to move on. So there's that specificity of it. But really, the general problems that we were solving, problems around the guarantees between services in a distributed system. So retries, concurrency management, being able to redirect traffic when certain parts of your system is down, and then the tools that you need to operate the systems around unified observability, both in time-based metrics and in logging. These are problems that we saw everywhere in the community and problems that people were trying to solve elsewhere. And that's why I think Envoy really hit it at the nail, hit the problem on very specifically when it came out, because a lot of these mid-sized internet scale companies were trying to do this migration and were trying to solve these problems, regardless of the specific scenarios that they were trying to solve. These commonalities were shared, and the pain that the people operating the systems was shared, and we needed something to fix that.
One of the things I struggle with a little bit when I think about what the proxy does, and when people talk about service mesh, is it seems to have kind of multiple personalities, right? There's discussions about it's for network segmentation and inter-application or inter-process communication. Sometimes it's thought about as a security function because it's a proxy, because it can do encryption of sessions. Like, how do you think about what it does? Is it both those things? Do you tend to skew in a different direction when you think about what functionality it provides?
So I think one of the beauties but also one of the really difficult things about Envoy, it's kind of a double-edged sword, is just the richness of its functionality. So I actually agree with you that you can think of Envoy as all of the things that you've mentioned and more. Because it in itself is a very, very, very rich and flexible tool that can be used for all sorts of things. So it can be used as an edge proxy, it can be used as a middle proxy, it can be used as a sidecar to do inter-process communication. You can encrypt that traffic, you cannot. It's a double-edged sword, because whatever problem that you might be trying to solve, you might want to use it for, but also you have to deal with the increasing complexities of depending more and more on your feature set on the same tool, and you have to know how to operate it efficiently so that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket and then failing when that basket fails. Yeah. And I think that this is where it's really exciting to be part of this community as a third party. Because we have seen a rise of third-party companies that are building systems on top of Envoy to kind of focus the use of the proxy. So there might be companies that are security focused and are trying to solve security features with Envoy. There's companies that are observability focused and they're trying to solve observability problems with Envoy. There's one company called Solo.io that's kind of doing a lot of work around usability of the service mesh and how do you actually operate this thing. And it's all built on top of this proxy. And so this is what I think is very exciting about this project, is that it's an incredibly useful and powerful tool. And it has really a giant room of opportunity for other people to come in and make that use more specific.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and it kind of explains why I was a little bit confused, because it at times it would seem like the discussion was in one domain, could be in another domain, but
Yeah.
I think what you're getting at is it can touch on a lot of domains depending on what your focus is. I'm curious, having a tool that potentially helps with things like observability or network routing, would, to a certain extent, seems like it would fall into the domain of, say, like the operations team or the platform team. But, if you're thinking about things like retries or load balancing, maybe you now start to get into the domain of the application team. I'm curious, how does Lyft think about who interacts with the service mesh? Is it, are there kind of clearly defined boundaries? Is it gray because your teams are more blended? I'm just kind of curious, having worked with it for a while, what works for you guys in terms of interaction with the service mesh?
So this is something that has evolved greatly in the last 3 years. And it was a topic that was permanently in my brain for the last 6 months. So let me start with 3 years ago. So
Sure.
like I said, 3 years ago when Matt started, or more than 3 years ago, almost 5 years ago, when Matt started this project, we created a very small team that was able to provide a lot of value to Lyft very quickly, because at the time we didn't have anything to solve all of these problems that we have been talking about. And so any incremental step in solving those problems was hugely impactful for the company. And so at that point, that really small team, which we called the network team, was handling everything from developing the proxy to rolling it out to developers to handling production level operations of it. And as we have grown as a company and as we have grown as a project, it has become increasingly difficult to do that in a centralized manner, both because we have over 1,500 engineers that are interacting with this big distributed system, but also because the features that we have provided are larger in domain, like you've been talking about, than just what we could call the network team. So like you said, it might be that the observability aspects of it are handled by an observability team, but the security aspects are handled by a security team. So really over the last 6 months, the network team at Lyft has struggled with determining what is the surface area that we're going to own and what is the surface area that is going to be distributed across the company. And so I think what we're settling on is that we will start building teams around specific domains that we're trying to solve at the platform layer. So like you were mentioning, circuit breakers or concurrency protections and retries, we're moving on to, we call it a resilience org. It's an org that is thinking about resilience end to end in our system, all the way from the mobile applications that we have on iOS and Android, all the way down to the data center. And so what we're trying to do with that move is moving out pieces of the distributed system, and specifically of the network, into domain layers. So someone will think about resiliency, someone will think about observability, someone will think about API surfaces. So we have an IDL team that thinks of what are the API surfaces that we need to expose so that the service mesh is understandable by product engineers. And really what we want to do is to build, on top of that, a platform that is transparent to our product engineers, so that they don't have to deeply understand the infrastructure that we're building in order to be effective in writing the feature, like the business features that are really giving Lyft a competitive edge. So that's kind of our current thinking about how we're doing this. It's something that is completely developing as we speak.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and I think what you're going through, I think is very much, it probably started as technical domain specific, who had expertise in that space, and then which I think is the right direction, is it sounds like you're moving it much more towards what is the thing that ultimately adds value for our customers, and then you're like you said, reliability of the service, making sure that people are getting their rides on time, that details are being shared. That becomes business and critical, business impactful, and you're putting then resources against things you can measure as business value. So it's interesting to sort of hear that transition. Let me wrap up with one last question, and again, appreciate all the time. If you were advising, somebody else in the community who's evaluating, the different proxy technologies or mesh technologies that are out there, not necessarily asking you to pick a winner or a favorite, but what was, if you were looking at it today, knowing some of the things that you know, what are some of those characteristics or things that you'd recommend to people to look at as they're evaluating maybe what makes sense, maybe where certain things will eventually be more important than maybe other features or so forth? Like how might you go through an evaluation process today if you were looking at the landscape?
I wish I could remember in much more detail a panel that I saw at KubeCon North America last year, because I think the point of the panel and the point of the panelist was that I think we rat hole sometimes in the industry in like features and what is it that I want to do, rather than like what is the problem that we're trying to solve at this point in our company. And I think that what I would do in evaluating that for Lyft right now, if we were at the point we were in 4 years ago with this abortive stage, is right now the moment that I want to take and increase the complexity of my system. Because I think that the issue that we've had the issue that I've had with a lot of people that come to me with this question is that you're trying to jump out and get all of this fancy new technology just to get the fancy new technology because you've heard of all this, like of this promised land that is on the other side. But really, it's a lot of work to get there, right? Like Lyft started this journey 4 or 5 years ago, and we're still like in the previous question, we're still struggling with aspects of it. So I think that the first step that I would take is really think deeply if right now is the time that I want to spend to put all of these resources into this problem first, and then second, I would if the answer is yes, if I want and I can spend the resources in this problem, then I would go and get a it sounds cliche, but get a list of feature requirements, right? So instead of looking at the offerings and saying, this proxy offers X, Y, and Z, and this proxy offers A, B, C, I would flip the table and say, what is it that I need from a proxy? And this is how Lyft started, right? Like when I was talking about HA proxy before, we said these are the features that we need in order to make our engineers successful on their day-to-day operations of this increasingly complex system. What is it out there that can help us solve these things? And I think that that's how a lot of the companies that have successfully migrated, at least the ones that I've talked to with Envoy, they've started that way. They've said, we have problems around setting common retries around all of our API calls. We have problems with being able to shadow traffic. And then they go and say, okay, Envoy has these 2 features, but it doesn't have this 3rd feature. And that's much better than going around and saying, there's no proxy that has all these features. I'm going to write something from scratch. Because if you know the features that you need, and one of the solutions out there is just missing one, then you know that perhaps you can use the product as is. And if the product is an open source project like Envoy, you can then invest in the small features that are missing to make you feature complete.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think, again, it's interesting that, as you're thinking about this, you very much are coming back around to the, what does our business need? Not are we chasing, essentially like an RFP for features and lots of features between platforms, because the vendors and the projects will always be chasing features. They feel like it differentiates them, but that doesn't necessarily differentiate your business. So it's interesting to hear that perspective. And again, why we always love to talk to people that are actually living and running this stuff in production. So listen, obviously you're speaking at Velocity. We will have links in there. And if folks don't get a chance to attend the event, the folks at O'Reilly do a really good job of making the the sessions captured on video. You can watch them afterwards. If people want to reach out to you, are you still active in the Envoy community, or what might be a good way for people to maybe pick your brain about some of the knowledge you've gained around this area?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very active in the Envoy community, and like I said, I teased a little bit earlier. A subset of what used to be the network team here at Lyft is working on an exciting new project that is going out all the way to the mobile platforms. So there's a lot more to come. For me to be contacted, people can write to me at jnino@lyft.com, or reach out to me in Twitter at JUNR03. And honestly, I actually was kind of glad how you described this interview as, like, just stopping by in the hallways in a conference and talking, because that's actually my favorite part of coming to conferences. Just those are the moments where I have like the best conversations, and I think that both parties benefit from that, because I get to hear what everyone's doing and all the solutions that they're thinking about.
Yeah, very, very cool. Well, listen, Jose, thank you so much for the time again today. We really appreciate it. Folks, as always, I want to thank our sponsors, both Datadog and DigitalOcean, for sponsoring the show today. I want to thank everybody who tells a friend about the show, is helping us grow, telling a friend about the show, rating it on iTunes and other places. And so with that, we're going to wrap it up. For Jose and for Aaron and myself, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.